You've probably heard a lot about ESG investing lately. It's exploded onto the scene, promising this amazing way to make money while also doing some good in the world. But here's the thing. It's also become one of the most heated debates in all of finance, a real battle between profits and principles.
I mean, you've got people like Elon Musk flat out calling it a scam, and you can kind of see why he's mad. His electric car company Tesla got kicked off a major ESG index. At the same time, others are saying this is the future of capitalism. So, what is the truth here?
Okay, so let's get right into it. To really get a handle on this whole debate, we first have to figure out what in the world ESG even is and why it's causing so much controversy. And right away, we hit the first massive problem. The entire field is kind of built on shaky ground. There's what you could call a crisis of clarity. No one can seem to agree on the basics.
So on the surface, ESG seems pretty simple. It's an acronym, right? E's for environmental, you know how a company treats the planet, its carbon footprint, that sort of thing. S is for social, which is all about how it treats people, employees, customers, the whole community. And G is for governance, which is about how the companies actually run. Think executive pay, shareholder rights, stuff like that. But here's where it gets messy. Those letters might be simple, but what they measure, oh, that is anything but. You have all these different rating agencies, and they all use different formulas, they all weigh things differently, and they can come to completely opposite conclusions about the exact same company. There's just no universal rulebook. And all this confusion, it basically opens the door for something called impact washing. This is where a company or a fund can kind of fudge the details and make itself look way more green or socially responsible than it actually is. It's a huge issue if you're an investor who genuinely wants your money to make a positive impact.
So, with all this mess, you're probably asking the big question. Does any of this actually help your wallet? Does ESG investing help or hurt your returns? Well, let's cut through the noise, follow the money, and see what the data actually says.
To get a real data-backed answer, we're going to look at this massive meta-study from NYU Stern Center for Sustainable Business. They didn't just do one study, they pulled together the research from hundreds and hundreds of them. Yeah, you heard that right. They looked at the results from over 1,000 different academic papers to see what all that collective evidence could tell us. It's a huge sample size.
So, what did they find? First, let's look at how ESG affects a company's own financial health. You know, things like its profits and stock performance. A huge majority, 58% of the studies, found a positive link. And get this, only a tiny 8% found a negative one. Okay, but what about for you, the investor? How do these funds perform in your portfolio? Well, the research found that almost 60% of the time, ESG funds did either the same as or even better than regular old traditional funds. So that old idea that you have to sacrifice gains to invest with a conscience, the data just doesn't seem to back that up. So if we boil all that research down, what are the big takeaways? First off, the financial perks of ESG get even better the longer you wait. Second, it seems to offer some protection when the market gets rocky. Third, it's better to actually integrate ESG factors into your strategy, not just avoid bad companies. Fourth, planning for a low-carbon world is actually good for business. Fifth, it helps companies innovate. But, and this is a really important but, just talking the talk and disclosing data isn't enough. You have to actually walk the walk to see results. Okay, so the data looks pretty good, right? Well, here's where we hit a major roadblock. It's a big one. Because in the United States especially, ESG runs headfirst into a very serious legal wall. And that wall has a name: fiduciary duty. This is a bedrock legal principle in finance. It basically says that if you're managing someone else's money, you are legally required to act in their best financial interest, period. And here's the thing, not everyone interprets this duty the same way. It's like there are two different rule books. In Europe, they mostly use a stakeholder model. That means a company can consider its impact on everyone: employees, customers, the environment. But in the US, the dominant model is shareholder primacy. And that means one thing: the main, and often the only, duty is to make as much money as possible for the people who own the stock. And don't just take my word for it. Listen to this quote from the former top judge in Delaware, which is where most big US companies are legally based. He says that stockholder welfare is the sole end. Basically, you can care about the environment, but only if it helps make shareholders more money. So what does that actually mean? It means if you're a fund manager in the US and you pick an investment that's great for the planet but makes slightly less money than another option, You could literally get sued for not doing your job. That creates a huge chilling effect, right? It makes it really risky to prioritize principles over profit. Okay, we've waded through the confusing definitions, the big data, and the legal drama. So what's the bottom line for you as an investor? How do you make sense of all this noise? All right, let's break it down. On one hand, the evidence from all those studies is pretty clear. Good ESG practices often lead to good financial results, especially if you're patient. But on the other hand, the whole field is a bit of a wild west. There are no clear standards, which makes impact washing a very real risk. And on top of all that, at least in the US, there's this fundamental legal conflict between doing good and maximizing profit. And that really brings us to the huge central question behind this entire debate. It's bigger than just investing. It forces all of us to ask, what is a company for? Is its only purpose to make a profit? Or does it have a much bigger responsibility to all of us and to the world?